Grand Duchess Maria was the third of the four sisters of Russia's last imperial family. Those who lived closest to her spoke of her in a register that set her apart. Mrs. Eagar, the children's Irish governess, called her the angel of the family, and wrote, "I often think she was born good, with the very smallest possible trace of original sin." The words were not empty praise. They arose from years of watching a child whose first movement was almost always toward kindness. She was born on the 14th of June, 1899. By the time she entered the nursery, Olga and Tatiana already formed the big pair, two strong and distinct personalities. Maria arrived as something warmer and more openly affectionate. Pierre Gilliard, who later taught the children, remembered her as a fine girl, tall for her age, a picture of glowing health and color, with large and beautiful gray eyes. Her tastes were simple. With her warm heart, she was kindness itself. Her sisters, taking advantage of that good nature, sometimes called her Fat Little Bow Wow. Gilliard noted the truth behind the nickname. She possessed the benevolent and somewhat gauche devotion of a dog, loyal, physical, and without calculation. That same quality appeared in small revealing moments. When the four girls were ill with whooping cough, and Mrs. Eagar warned them not to cough on anyone, Maria went to the infant Anastasia, who was choking and struggling. She put her face close to her sister's face, and said, "Baby darling, cough on me." When asked what she meant, she answered simply that she was sorry to see her little sister so ill, and thought that if she could take the illness upon herself, Anastasia would be better. The story was repeated in the family, not as an amusing anecdote, but as a window into a nature that instinctively offered itself. Another incident from the same years shows both her goodness and her very human appetite. The emperor and empress were taking tea. The children were forbidden to ask for the tiny vanilla wafers they loved. Little Maria was later found in the middle of the room, with tears in her eyes, and the evidence of a hastily swallowed biscuit. The empress ordered her to bed. The emperor intervened with a smile, saying he had always been afraid of wings growing, and was glad to see she was only a human child after all. The remark became part of family lore. Even the angel was still a child of flesh and blood, capable of a child's sudden hunger and a child's tears. Her elder sisters at first exploited this softness. When Maria wanted to join their games, they sometimes sent her away, telling her to play the footman. One time, having been asked to play the footman, she went obediently, and then returned a little later with an armload of toys. She said, "I won't be a footman, I'll be the kind good aunt who brings presents." The older girls were ashamed and never excluded her again. The pattern would continue throughout her life. When slighted or constrained, Maria's response was rarely resentment. It was an almost stubborn return to kindness. Anna Vyrubova, who knew the family intimately, observed that of the four girls, Olga and Marie were the most essentially Russian, the most Romanov in inheritance. Marie had splendid eyes and rose-red cheeks. She was inclined to be stout, and her rather thick lips detracted a little from classical beauty. Yet she possessed a naturally sweet disposition and a very good mind. All three of the younger girls had something of the tomboy in them, a brusqueness inherited from their Romanov ancestors that showed itself in mischief and high spirits. Maria shared that physical vitality. Lili Dehn, who grew especially close to her during the revolution, remembered a girl of tremendous reserve force and an unselfish nature that only fully revealed itself in the darkest days. The Grand Duchess Maria knew at once what she wanted, and why she wanted it. She was the most social of the four. Diaries bored her. She found the daily recording of events tedious and preferred live conversation. By contrast, her letters were vivid, descriptive, and full of warmth. She had a natural gift for storytelling and an ease with people that set her apart from Olga's more intellectual intensity and Tatiana's reserved discipline. Where her elder sisters moved through the world with a certain inwardness, Maria moved toward others with uncomplicated affection. During the war, she was still too young for the operating theatre. While Olga and Tatiana trained as surgical nurses and worked under the most severe conditions, Maria and Anastasia visited the wounded, read to them, helped them write letters, and did what they could to lift the spirits of the men. The work suited her nature. She brought presence and warmth rather than technical skill. The soldiers responded to her, as they did to few others. In the spring of 1918, when the family faced separation in Tobolsk, the sisters themselves decided who would accompany their parents to Ekaterinburg. Olga's health remained fragile. Tatiana was needed to stay behind with Alexei and manage the household. Anastasia was the youngest. Maria, they agreed, was the most suitable to go. The choice revealed how the family saw her. Not the most intellectual, not the most organized, but the one whose steady good nature, physical strength, and decided character could be a support to their mother and father in the unknown that lay ahead. She left with them in the cold of April, sharing the hardships of the journey, adjusting cushions for her mother with hands so cold she had to rub them back to life. In Ekaterinburg, the same qualities continued to show themselves. The guards, who were not entirely hardened, found her the most approachable of the daughters. One of them later described her as a true Russian beauty. According to him, when she smiled, her eyes shone so brightly that it was a pleasure to see. Her laughter was cheerful and infectious. There was an invincible force in her temperament. He remembered her one day in the garden, seizing a huge tree branch and swinging on it with such strength that the commandant had to shout at her to stop damaging the trees. Even in confinement, the physical vitality and the open-heartedness remained. Maria left behind no large body of self-examination or philosophical reflection. Her interior life does not appear in long searching letters, the way Olga's sometimes does. Nor in the disciplined spiritual notes that mark Tatiana. What remains of her is simpler and in its own way, more radiant. A consistent movement toward affection, a refusal to answer unkindness with unkindness, a physical and emotional generosity that those around her felt at once. Lili Dehn, who spent the final months of freedom and the first months of captivity close to her, never forgot her unselfishness that revealed itself under pressure. Gilliard never forgot her warm heart and her simple glowing presence. Anna Vyrubova never forgot her sweet disposition and her splendid eyes. Mrs. Eagar never forgot the child who seemed born good. Together their testimonies allow us to see Grand Duchess Maria not as a plaster angel, but as a living girl whose first and lasting instinct was love. Through a decided and generous heart that remained open when many would have closed.